So let's take a look then at the Song of Solomon's, also known as the Song of Songs. Some people may know it as the Book of Canticles, based on the Latin title. And before we go into the book itself, we have to raise a few questions. And those questions are why the book itself is found in our Bibles. There's no reference to God directly in this song. So to that extent, it's like the book of Esther, no direct reference to God. There's no reference to the covenant, the Mosaic covenant. There's no reference at all to law, and there is no reference to wisdom, even though Solomon appears to be a central character. So it doesn't fit with any of the types of literature that we have in our Bibles. It doesn't seem to belong to any of the biblical traditions. So why is this book here? Now, we'll be addressing that at the end of our look at this book. To begin with then, let's try and come to terms with the book itself. And what you have in this song is a cast of characters. And there are two main characters. There is the Shulamite woman, and the debate is around the meaning of her name, Shulamite. Some people say that she is from the region of Shulam. And then, of course, you'd expect debate around where that was. Where was Shulam? Some people think that the name is a female version of the name Solomon. So it has quite a close connection then, etymologically, to the name of Solomon. So she's the main character. And we hear far more from her than we do from the other main character, which is her beloved. And he's not referred to by name. The tradition is, of course, that this beloved is Solomon himself. These are the two main characters. And then you have three supporting characters, if you wish. You have the daughters of Jerusalem. You then have the beloved's friends, or brothers, same group of people. And then there's a single appearance by a relative who recalls the Shulamite's mother. These are the supporting characters. And the whole thing has the sense of a drama, a play, if you like. There is no formal structure to the book as such, so we can't divide it up into this section and that section. What you have is very similar to very early forms of Greek drama. You have characters. These characters are either soloists or they form part of a chorus. So the daughters of Jerusalem are a chorus. The relatives of the beloved, these are chorus figures who comment on the events, or they are referred to, they're spoken to by the soloists. So it's dramatic in that sense. It's a little bit like the Book of Ruth, where you have the same idea of main characters and then supporting characters who form a kind of chorus. They comment on, they reflect on what's being said. So a little bit like that, but it has much more in common with very early Greek type dramas. So think of it as, if you want, even as a kind of an opera and a love opera. So that's the book itself. So there's no value at all in trying to say this section 1 or section 2, because it just doesn't seem to work like that. The sense of the book goes in a circle, if you like, around the drama. So what we need to think about then are some of the main events, if you want to call them that, or the talking points of this book. And let me just highlight a couple of them. In chapters 1 and 2, you have an exchange between the Shulamite woman and the daughters of Jerusalem. And in this exchange, the Shulamite seems to be remembering her first encounter with her beloved. It's a visit that she's recalling to the daughters of Jerusalem of this past event when she first met her beloved. And it seems that the Shulamite was a shepherdess, or she was a country girl. She was a keeper of vineyards, and she had been put to work by her family in this particular way when her beloved went past on a journey of some kind, saw her for the first time, she saw him for the first time, and love blossomed. Now, if you look at the first chapter of the Song of Solomon, it's very likely that the Shulamite is a black woman. If you look at verse 5 of chapter 1, I am dark but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. She does refer to herself as being tanned, but the word there isn't sun-tanned. It's to do with the original colour of her skin. So she seems to be part of the nomadic tribes that were in existence around this time, who would come from the southern regions. And she was doing her job when she met her beloved. And so what she does in chapter 1 and chapter 2 is she recalls her meeting with her beloved. And there seems to have been tension between her and her family. And then she finds love with her beloved. So that's the first kind of sense we have of what's going on in this particular drama. And then if we turn to chapter 3, we can divide chapter 3 into two parts. And in the first, verses 1 to 5, it seems to be that the Shulamite woman is having a difficult night. She's gone to sleep, and then she seems to have a dream. Now, there is some discussion about whether it is a dream or whether she wakes up from a dream and searches the city looking for her beloved. Most people think that she is having what we would call today an anxiety dream. And we've all had them. You're dreaming, you're back in work perhaps, you're dreaming about some person that you know, you've gone to some past event. That does seem to be the consensus view of chapter 3, verses 1 to 5. She is dreaming of her beloved, and she is experiencing, again, what we would call today separation anxiety. She's looking for him, she wants him, she's searching for him, she's distressed because she's not with him. She's having separation anxiety, which is then being worked out in her dreams. That's the first part of chapter 3. And then the second part of chapter 3, from verses 6 to 11, she watches something happening during the day. And what she's watching is a royal procession. You can see it from verse 6 of chapter 3. Where she is, we don't know. How the procession is going, we don't know. But she's observing this royal procession. And it seems to be taking the form of a wedding procession. And it may even be that the groom is Solomon, her beloved. He seems to be getting married to someone else. And she's watching, looking on. And as she looks on, she is giving voice to her love for him, but also her sense that something is happening to her beloved of which she isn't a part. So that's chapter 3. It's one of the most standout chapters of the Song of Solomon. Chapter 4, the beloved speaks, and he doesn't speak as much as she does. So whilst there are two main characters, it's no doubt at all that the Shulamite is the main focus of the entire drama. He speaks in chapter 4, and then when we come to chapter 5, it seems again that the Shulamite has another dream. And she's lying on her bed, and there's a knock at the door, and it's her beloved, but she doesn't respond quickly enough. And so by the time she gets out of bed and answers the door, he's gone. And then she searches for him, and she's looking for him. It's very, very similar to chapter 3 and the first dream. And it's got all the same elements of separation, anxiety, fear, loss, searching. The components are very, very similar. She's lazy to begin with. She's got undressed. If you look at verse 3 of chapter 5, she's got undressed and she's gone into bed and she doesn't want to be disturbed. And he comes along and he knocks the door. Can I be bothered to get up out of bed and answer the door? You know, it's got all those feelings to do with the fact that I didn't make enough effort. I should have tried harder. I should have responded quicker. I should have been more attentive. These are the sort of elements that express themselves in her dream. And then she searches for him. She wanders for him. She longs for him. It's almost a repetition of the first dream in chapter 3. And again, let me just remind you that the general view is that they are dreams rather than actual events. And then what you have from that dream state of chapter 5 is you have further reflections by her, by the beloved, by the daughters, by the relatives, by the friends. You have further reflections on their relationship and how one looks and how the other looks, and what they want to see, and how they describe one another, and how they complement each other. That's how the sort of drama ends. It's this celebration of both the Shulamite and the beloved, the physical attractiveness, and the nature of their relationship. That's the Song of Solomon. Now, what I want us to do is look at what I think, and from memory now, most people think, is the key verse in the entire song. And that is found in chapter 8. And really there are two key verses, but at this point, let me just look at one of them. And that's chapter 8 and verse 7. Okay, so underline this verse. This is really the key to unlocking the book. Chapter 8 and verse 7. Many waters cannot quench love, nor can the floods drown it. If a man would give for love all the wealth of his house, it would be utterly despised. Many waters cannot quench love. And so the key theme of the book is love. And it's the love between a man and a woman, romantic love. We would even have to say sexual love. That's the theme for the Song of Solomon. And it's a description of love, but it comes with a warning. And some of the key supporting verses bring about the warning element to the experience of romantic love. Okay, so the theme is romantic love. The book is romantic love. It's a celebration of romantic love, but there is also this note of warning. And I want you to see that the note of warning is found at least 3 times. Okay, you may find more than I have. So if you look at chapter 2 and verse 7, here's the first note of warning that we have about romantic love. Verse 7 then of chapter 2, I charge you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or by the does of the field, do not stir up nor awaken love until you're ready. You may have the translation until it pleases, but a much better translation is until you're ready. If you turn to chapter 3 and verse 5, you find the same warning. I charge you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or by the does of the field, do not stir up or awaken love until you're ready. Okay, and then go to chapter 8 and verse 4, and you see the warning again. I charge you, O daughters of Jerusalem, do not stir up nor awaken love until it pleases. So whilst the overwhelming emphasis in the book is the pleasure and the joy of romantic love, you also get this element of warning. Now, there are a couple of other supporting verses that we need just to notice. Go back to chapter 2 and verse 6. And this description of the pleasure of romantic love occurs a few times in the book. His left hand is under my head and his right hand embraces me. Okay, that is found there. If you look at chapter 8 and verse 3, you see it there again. His left hand is under my head and his right hand embraces me. So there's the joy of romantic love. But she offers a warning to the daughters of Jerusalem, because the Shulamite woman has also experienced jealousy, and she's experienced the pain of the fact that she does not have an exclusive relationship with the beloved. The beloved has other loves, and she wants to give voice to the pain of understanding and realizing that she's not the only love for her beloved. So if you look at chapter 8 and verse 6, here is the second half of the key verse, if you like. I said verses, two of them, 6 and 7, they belong together. So chapter 8 and verse 6, set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is as strong as death, jealousy as cruel as the grave. Its flames are flames of fire. That's the flames of jealousy, a most vehement flame. So there she is. She loves her beloved. She knows that her beloved loves her. She rejoices in that. She celebrates it. She gives voice to what she thinks about him. He gives voice to what he thinks about her. They do describe what goes on between them. And they use lots of metaphors of gardens and so on to describe what they actually experience, how love is expressed between them. And it may well be that she marries him. We're not sure. But there's this very strong element then of the pain of romantic love and the particular pain of jealousy. And so that's why she says to the daughters of the Jerusalem, don't stir up love. Don't experience love. Don't long for it. Don't want it until you're ready. Because it's not all rosy, if you like. It's not, love isn't all plain sailing. It's not all clouds and flowers and chocolates and rainbows. Love is also painful. It causes you to have bad dreams. It keeps you awake at night. You feel separation anxiety. You feel the pain of jealousy. So it's not all great at all. There's a great deal about love that is painful. What else you see in this song, this drama, is the outcome of love. What does romantic love lead to? And of course, as you'd expect, romantic love leads to children. It leads to pregnancy and it leads to birth. And so you have a repeated theme throughout this song of my mother. The Shulamite will talk about her mother. She'll talk about her mother's bedroom. She'll talk about the place where her mother conceived her. She'll talk about the place where her mother gave birth to her. And that's the idea, a bit like, you know, our modern musical, whatever it's called, I forget now, where you get the song, The Circle of Life. It's a bit like that. She was born out of love herself. She is now experiencing love, romantic love. And in her turn, she will give birth to a child who will then be the result of romantic love. So it's all full circle, if you like. That's part of the idea that romantic love is not something that one couple knows, other couples in the past have known it, couples in the future will know it. It's this ongoing cycle of human experience. So you'll get those references. So chapter 8, verse 5, chapter 3, verse 4, we keep returning to the mother and to the Shulamite's mother. There are a lot of really well-known phrases in this book that have come into common usage. Some of the phrases of the book have come into our hymnology and into our chorus singing. So it would be very remiss of me not to point them out to you, even though you know them well. So, for example, chapter 2 and verse 4, he brought me into his banqueting house, and his banner over me is love. Now, these are the celebratory verses, celebrating the idea of romantic love. You have her referred to as the Rose of Sharon. She is the lily of the valley. And we've taken these phrases, and what we have done is we have then applied them to the person of Christ. And this brings us to the most difficult part of the Song of Solomon, and that is, how do you interpret it then? How do you give a meaning to it that is Christian? How do you do that? And for many people then, this book is an allegory. And we interpret it, and I got to try and say the word now, we interpret it allegorically. And the idea would be, therefore, that what you have here is an allegory, a picture of the relationship between Jesus, the beloved, and the Shulamite, which is the church. And you have a kind of celebration of the love between the church and Christ. To Jewish interpreters, that way of interpreting is not possible, of course. And so what you have in the Jewish tradition is the fact that you have a celebration here between Yahweh, the beloved, and the nation of Israel, the Shulamite woman. And that the imagery of being a vine dresser, being a shepherd, a shepherdess rather, is found in the book of book of Isaiah, sorry. And in those early chapters of Isaiah, you seem to have imagery of vineyards, vines, and so on, that seem to apply to the nation of Israel. So there's that sort of tradition of interpretation in amongst Jewish people. For the church, it's Christ. For many Puritan authors, the Song of Solomon was the book of choice to describe the emotional, subjective relationship between the church and between Jesus. Now, I'm sure you know who the Puritans are. We are looking at 17th century preachers, writers, Christian thinkers, particularly in England, but not exclusively. The Puritans, this puritanical movement that was so powerful for 100 years or so. There would be many Puritan commentators who would come to this book and use it as an allegory. In modern times, the idea of interpreting scripture as allegory has fallen out of use. And I think the idea there is that allegory was overused for a period of time. And an allegory became the way that most of our Bible was understood by means of. And I think quite rightly, there's been a move away from the use of allegory. As an example of an allegory and how it's misused, you can think of the parable of the prodigal son, and how the eldest son is thought of as being Israel and the youngest son is thought of as being the church. And you know, that's allegory. That's finding too much, reading too much into a particular text. And there's a real danger of misusing allegory. So we're still left with whether it's right or not to think of allegory as the proper way of unlocking the book of the Song of Solomon. Is it then a picture of, a type of, an expression of the relationship between the beloved, Jesus, the Shulamite woman, the church, or even the individual Christian? I'm not going to give you my view, but what I will say to you is, if you wish to interpret it that way, as an allegory, how do you make sense then of the warnings that are very definitely a part of the song. Do not awaken love until you are ready. How do you make sense of the jealousy that the Shulamite experiences when she sees her beloved in a wedding procession getting married to somebody else? How do you explain the separation anxiety that the Shulamite woman experiences, and how that even enters into her dreams and causes her to have troubled sleep? How do you make sense of that? Now, you may be saying to me, okay, then, Neil, you are giving us your view, aren't you? You don't think that it's an allegory for the relationship between Jesus and the church. Well, I haven't said that. What I am saying is you have to be faithful to the whole text. And if you wish to view it as an allegory, and you may do so, and it may be right to do so, you still have to engage with the whole text and not just pick and choose the bits that fit into the view that you take of it. You must include the whole of it and interpret the whole text with your favorite position. So use the image of the relationship between Jesus and the church. Fine, do it. But include all the text as you seek to do that. So, key verses again, let me remind you, chapter 8, verses 6 and 7, they are the key verses, and they are the verses that you need to use to unlock. Now, can you then take the Rose of Sharon, the Lily of the Valley, can you take those phrases out and apply them to Christ? Then yes, you can. Of course you can. You can describe him in ways that glorify him and glorify his love for the church and for his people. Of course you can. What I'm just simply asking you to do is to be consistent and to engage with the text as a whole. So that is the Song of Solomon.